What's going on, Tamers? East here. Now, I just want to start off by saying thank you. So a lot of you folks reached out in the comments of the last Meta Report video and gave some great ideas for the common and uncommon cup that's happening right now as of the recording of this video in Japan for this month. A lot of you folks recommended the purple Paildramon, and I gotta say, that deck slaps. A lot of folks also recommended Hunters. While it doesn't have some of the key pieces and like the SR and R cards, you have enough Tamers, and the Chohakaimon is amazing to do DP reduction to manage the board, and so that's been a lot of fun as well. For the folks who follow these Meta Report videos, then you remember last week we were on a small break, but now we're back, and in this video we're going to be doing a double feature, doing weeks 4 and 5 together in the same video. And so while completely unplanned, in hindsight that was a fantastic decision. For folks who don't follow the Asia tournament circuit, we're actually having the Grand Asia Opening Finals for Cycle 1, one of 2 cycles happening here in Japan, where the top 4 players will qualify directly to Worlds next year. All this means that players are getting really competitive. The qualifiers still haven't happened here in Japan. That'll be happening the same day of the Grand Asia Open Finals, and that means that players here are doing extensive amounts of research and preparation for that event. To learn more about what that actually means, let's take a look at some event results, a couple of key takeaways, and a close look at some of the decks that topped over the course of the past 2 weeks. So diving into week 4's results, not a lot has actually changed here. You'll see a lot of these similar faces at the upper echelons of the list here. One of the interesting things to note is the nice little bump of Digimon this past week. I think Western players have just gotten their hands on this guy, and he's honestly a card with a lot of potential in my opinion. And with the new Shadow Seraphi Ace that was released recently over here in Asia, I think his deck only gets better. Interestingly enough, we also took a look at one of the decks featuring Digimon last week, so if you want to know more about this deck or you're looking for a build, check out week 3's Meta Report video. Something you won't get from just looking at this list here is the Mirage Galgamon here at the rookie level. Players in Japan especially rate Mirage Galgamon still very highly, and in the past couple weeks I've been seeing the pairing of him and Hexablaumon creeping up quite a bit. Honestly, if you're a blue player right now, you're spoiled for choice it seems. With decks like Ancient Garurumon, Paildramon, and the Mirage Galgamon, players have been experimenting a lot with all 3 of these to see if they can find some better engines than the ones currently out there. One of the more popular ones that we're going to be looking at today actually is going to be the Paildramon Toolbox. Also, a couple of other nice things to point out here. We finally see another Lucemon here after week 1. It popped up like one time and then nothing after that. It's good to see the deck make a resurgence. I actually played this deck at locals this week when I was using Finner Lugomon, and I got slapped. Holy crap, that deck is terrifying. Also, surprisingly, the new Beelstarmon deck as well as Bloomlord popped up here, and this one that you see down at the very bottom with just the Arisa face here is actually like Puppet Rush, where players have used the Arisa Kinosaki Tamer cards in order to make puppets gain rush and play more puppets whenever ones are destroyed. Seems like a really interesting way to explore some of the Liberator cards that didn't really get their shine in the EX7 set. As we move into week 5, you'll notice that the Mega and Ultimate levels right off the bat are completely vacant, and this is because there was a huge hit to event participation this past week. My guess here that this has to do with the fact that the Grand Asia Opening event is actually coming up, and players are starting to experiment only with their tight-knit groups of friends, as not to give away any tech before that event happens. If you've ever heard the phrase "save that shit for tournament," it feels like it definitely applies here now more than ever. The results themselves are still pretty static when compared to things like week 2, 3, and 4. And the one thing that I do want to point out here on this list though is that it's becoming, I think, a bit more apparent, the gulf between Ancient Garurumon and Numamon. Where in previous weeks you'd see both these decks like together at the Mega level, and what's a little bit misleading about that is that the decks both had 10+ wins, but you didn't really see how big the gap between those two themselves really were, where you had Numamon with something like 10 wins, but then Ancient Garurumon would have like 16, and so I think this list shows that the decks are starting to become a bit more separated. Weeks 4 and 5 definitely demonstrate the difference between these 2 decks at the highest level, even though Chikurimon and Kokuomon in the Numamon deck completely reigns on Ancient Garurumon's parade. Diving into some of the decks that topped over the course of the past 2 weeks, the first one we're going to focus on is this really cool Veemon-esque toolbox. This one uses the speed and the partition effect of the Paildramon cards with its Hexablow and Magnamon X antibody upper end. The lower end of the deck uses some of the basic searcher cards in the Wormmon and Veemon, as well as the promo Wormmon here for a bit of extra search. What I really like about this deck though is that it includes a couple copies of the BT18 dual color Veemon, who gives you a bit more DP and inheritance to help your Magnamon close out or scale some of those walls in things like Mother D Reaper that were pretty tough for the deck beforehand. In lots of recent builds for Paildramon, actually, players have been starting to include a couple copies of the starter deck Magnamon that you see here at the level 4s as a way to help control the board while they're still assembling some of their pieces. This deck actually takes full advantage of that and actually leans in a little bit more with the one extra copy as a way to just sometimes warp directly into the level 6 Magnamon X antibody. And Paildramon typically has issues with huge invincible blockers on board, and so the deck has swapped out the Paildramon to the top end for Hexablaumon as a way to use the Ice Cloud ability plus the extra sources from your Paildramon as a way to scale those walls and get past those Digimon. And with those increased sources from the Paildramon plus partition, that makes your board very sticky. The deck also has some really nice defensive utilities as well, in things like the Gabumon Ace, the Fighter Mode Ace that you see here at level 6, as well as the Zudomon Ace at the level 5. With all these things together, if you're having trouble or you're playing in a meta where there's lots of defensive players out there, maybe this build might be the way to go. Personally, Leomon's coloring as well as the Fortitude effect has always made it a really interesting deck in my opinion. And players have started to use that coloring with the power of some really nasty aces to pretty good effect. For example, in this deck, outside of the regular heavy Leomon, you see things like the Shadow Seraphi Ace, the Cherubimon Ace, and even Grand Kawagamon Ace, and Paildramon Paladin Mode Ace. Actually moving down here, taking a look at the level 5s, there's some really nasty inheritance effects off of things like the Little Leomon as well as the Grab Leomon. You've also got some nice cheap evolves in the Argomon here, as well as the potential Blast Digivolve off of the Hercules Kabuterimon, and then the one copy of the Shakomon here who can DNA if you opt to go wide on board with 2 level 4s. Also, the Shakomon's ability to gain invincibility for a turn from Digimon effects is like the perfect setup for ace cards. This combined with Fortitude and the Shoto Kazama Tamer you see in the deck as well makes the blockers really scary to take out actually. One of the things that I think is really cool about this deck is the inclusion of the Leomon X antibody, who has recovery on deletion. Now, I'm not sure how this works, so more knowledgeable rule knowers in comments, let me know. If I have the Leomon X antibody in sources and the Digimon gets deleted and it has partition, can I recover first and then get the partition Digimon down again? Is that possible? Let me know. So if you're looking for a deck that strikes fear in your opponent's hearts and makes them very scared to even interact with your board, definitely check out this version of Leomon. Each week, I allow my champion level and higher YouTube members to vote on decks they'd like to see featured in these meta report videos. And this week, because we're doing a double feature, I'm actually going to show off 2 decks from their votes. If you'd like to vote on decks that you want to see covered in these meta report videos, as well as some other cool perks and bonuses, consider becoming a champion level YouTube member as well. Again, I want to give a big thank you to all the folks who do help support the channel, and with that, let's take a look at their choices. The first deck we're going to look at is going to be Finalugomon Takemikazuchi, a really powerful OTK deck that can, in some cases, end the game on turn 2. Cleaning up the list a little bit just so it's more readable here, I think the biggest shakeup with this list is at the level 4s, where you see the BT16 Dorugomon as well as the BT17 Dex Dorugomon. This helps you manage the board a little bit better with the Dorugomon here, while also being able to cycle cards with its effect. And then if that would be destroyed, you always have the Dex Dorugomon in trash as a backup to save it once. The level 5s for this deck are pretty standard, with a couple copies of the Helugomon to destroy Digimon on board as well as cycle cards at the same time, as well as things like the Salugomon, who are the gateway pieces into your level 6 Finalugomon and Takemikazuchi later on. In the past few weeks, the deck has adopted Scobaluchimon as a mainstay, just because he's so much more flexible than Baumon is. So what do I mean here? Well, Baumon allows you to evolve into cards that you discard, and because the deck has lots of discarding, that seems really useful. Scobaluchimon here goes one step further in saying that whenever he is discarded, you can digivolve a Digimon on board into any dark animal or undead card in your trash. So in the case where one of your missing pieces is already in the trash and you need a way to actually get it back to evolve into it, Scobaluchimon is your saving grace. The options from previous iterations of Lugomon have all pretty much been scrapped in favor of just 2 copies of the Demon Wolf of Castle of 9 Wolves and 2 copies of the Purple Scramble. These cards are great because they both allow you to put 1 Digimon on board in the case you're missing an alliance target. You can do that for really cheap. Finalugomon Takemikazuchi is already a really strong deck, but within the next few weeks here, we're going to get access to the Amber Memory Boost and Grape Memory Boost, both of which allow the deck to be more consistent with its searches. Now, where you really have a tough time actually like searching for the Kazuchimon outside of just drawing it yourself, the new memory boosts allow you a way to actually grab that card whenever you do see it. Our last list of the day comes from an Indonesian event from a player by the name of Kevin, who looks like the kind of guy who knows a secret but just isn't telling anyone. Quick sidebar here with Kevin, if that is your real name. Hey man, what's that secret? Spill the beans. It's just you and I won't tell nobody, it's fine, it's just us two. What's the secret, man? Like before, I've gone ahead and actually cleaned up this list as well so that it's a little bit more readable. But you know, Ragnarlord has always been a deck that has some great pieces, but I think putting them together has always been a bit difficult. I think this list here is a nice mix of some of the older stuff from the Ragnarlord starter deck that came out a long time ago, as well as the cards from EX6. For For example, here at the level 3s, we've got the Searcher Leomon from like the old BT3 set, I think it is, paired alongside something like the Starter Deck Leomon, who lets you open a card, and if it's cost 7 or lower, you can just play it on the board. At the level 4s, you've got a couple copies of the Zweigamon, who can be slotted under other Digimon for huge bonuses in DP, as well as the inheritance of plus 2000. The T Leomons here allow you to become scarier on your opponent's turn though, with the Starter Deck version allowing you to slot under Digimon and gain Reboot, and the EX6 version allowing you to slot under Digimon and gain more DP. Fun fact here, you can actually scan the QR code on Leomon's shield there, the EX6 version, and I'm pretty sure it takes you to the Digimon Encyclopedia website. Check it out if you can. Let me know if you got it in the comments below. Level 5s features some fantastic choices and things like the Raiji Leomon, who can slot under Digimon and then taunt something, as well as give protection and inheritance, as well as things like the Duromons, who can either let you evolve at end of turn and inheritance, or let you get security attack +1 when you put it under a Digimon. All this, I think, culminates in the level 6 Paildramons. The first one from EX6 only allowing you to be deleted from board. You can't be bounced or put in security or put under a Digimon. It has to be deleted and nothing else. Whereas the starter deck Paildramon says you're invincible to all of your opponent's Digimon's effects, which means you have this like thin sliver of a margin of ways you can actually be removed from the board once you get to your Ragnalord. The starter deck Paildramon and Durandamon also sport the nice secondary effect that whenever you basically get to them, whether it's evolving or attacking, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and if there's a cost 7 or lower, you can just play it on the board. Which means once you get to your level 6, it's so much easier to set up to your level 7. And then finally, the boss monster of the deck, the Ragnalord. You'll see this list is actually very DNA focused, where they've got a couple copies of the EX6 version, and there's a few copies of the starter deck Ragnalord, who's a bit more offensive in my opinion, being able to trash security. And then finally, the old BT3 Ragnalord, just as an option in case you can't get your 2 level 6s on board at the same time, or you don't have like the other piece in hand, you can just go directly into him. And so if you're like me and you really struggle to put the pieces of the Ragnalord deck together, I think this list is a great one to start with. And with that, we're going to bring our double feature Week 4 and Week 5 of the BT18 Element Successor set meta report to a close. I'm really excited about the Grand Asia Open finals that are going to be happening pretty soon here, and that's going to be like an all-day event. There's going to be a lot of other side stuff you can do as well. I'm going to do my best to actually get to that event so that I can also grab those new Mimbus that are going to be coming out that we mentioned before. I'm really excited to try those out in the Fender Leomon deck that we mentioned before, but also things like Greymon, where they have like a red and black package. I want to see if I can put that together as well. Let me know in the comments below what decks you're interested in trying out once those new Mimbus drop wherever you're playing the game. Anyways, folks, I'm gonna get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. I feel like my smile is actually a frown sometimes. Am I tripping? It's like a happy frown. It's weird.